What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive, and we are in week 2 of our series called Coming Home for Christmas. Which one are we talking about today?
Well, today we're looking at when we're going home for Christmas, or when we're just going home in general.
Yeah.
Sometimes that can be difficult. It can be difficult to go home for a variety of reasons. And so we'll unpack that today.
Yeah, that'll be good. Let's get into it. Well, Dave, I heard we did some traveling this week. This weekend.
We were comparing notes Sunday morning and realized we had both taken a little road trip. Both of them were pretty quick.
Yep.
But mine was overnight.
Yeah, okay.
Teresa and I went up to a music festival at Lake Junaluska. You ever heard of Lake Junaluska?
I have, and I love that place. It's cool.
So that kind of Methodist land there.
Yeah. A quick little tip about Lake Junaluska is actually, so I did youth ministry for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And the only kid I've ever had to take to a hospital was one from a trip there, and it was dehydration. I mean, we put kids on roofs and other places and had hammers and saws. And the only time I went was during a confirmation trip where all we were doing was walking around.
Oh my goodness! What? Now, why did he have to go?
It was actually she got dehydrated.
Okay.
Just passed out actually in her dorm room. And another quick tip that our producer, our audio tech guy, Nick Boker, was actually a youth on that trip. I took him on that confirmation trip.
Oh, cool, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Teresa and me went up to Lake Junaluska, which is not that far. It's maybe 3 hours and 45 minutes up to Lake Junaluska, to this music festival, Bluegrass Festival. It was at Lake Junaluska. It wasn't necessarily connected with the Methodist Church. It was, it's just they have a nice 2,000 seat auditorium there. And we got to see some great players. The first night, this guy named Michael Cleveland, or the first act, Michael Cleveland, and the Flame Keepers. They've been voted best instrumental group for a number of years. He has been voted the best fiddle player for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And so he's incredible. And then Sierra Hall and her husband, Justin Moses, and they're just both incredible players. He has won Dobro Player of the Year for the IBMA several years, and she's won like the last 6 years as mandolin player. And
Holy cow.
So it was wonderful.
Some
it was a great
talent
thing
there.
Yeah, and so we did that. We stayed up in the hotel there at Lake Junaluska, got up at 6 a.m. so that we could be sitting in our living room to watch the World Cup on Saturday at 10 a.m. And the result of that wasn't so good, but
yeah, it was a little sad.
Yeah.
I think if Pulisic would have just scored that first goal, like in the 5th or 6th minute, like could have been different. But either way, I think that was a great showing for the U.S.
It was, of course, and the dogs looked good.
They did.
SEC champs. But we probably should talk about the sermon.
Yeah, real quick, just the trips I went on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So we went up to Chattanooga, did a Christmas laser light show. I don't know that I would recommend it, but we had a good family time. So it was just a quick up and back. And actually, yesterday or Sunday, we're recording this on Monday, so Sunday, we went down to Macon to see Rachel's grandmother, and we decorated her apartment for her and stuff like that. So it was fun.
So you were on the road a lot.
We were on the road. We probably drove probably about 8 hours over the weekend or so.
Yeah. All right. Well, that can be fun.
It can be fun.
Yeah.
But so now why don't we kind of move into this sermon? Let's break it down a little bit. Coming home for Christmas, really talking about this one being when going home is hard. Do you want to kind of talk a little bit about what?
Right. Yeah. I should say, and we'll pull this back a little bit, but the original title of this was The Fear of Home. But the more I got into the text, I realized it's probably a little mistitled. And so if I had to title it, it would be When Going Home is Hard.
Yeah.
And so the idea is the road home is always under construction, and that can be hard.
Yeah.
And so what that means, and I got that sort of out of the text from Malachi, where it talks about that every valley will be filled and every mountain and hill will be leveled. The crooked will be made straight and the rough places made smooth. All humanity will see God's salvation. So, for all humanity seeing God's salvation, there's some road work that needs to be done.
Sure.
And so God is at work doing that, and God uses us in doing that But I would say, and I kind of started off this place on Sunday, but is that, we here in Hickory Flat understand road construction.
Absolutely. This four-way has been under construction for, it feels like years.
Yeah.
It's still going on.
It's still going on. But there's been other road construction. I mean, it's been rough getting home to our physical homes here. And I say the last 9-10 months. And so we understand that. And so that's a physical way of going home. But emotionally, relationally, sometimes those ways can also be stressful and, hard as well. And, you just kind of thinking about like the traditional Christmas, we think about family reunions and families being together. And, and we watch Hallmark movies or whatever, and they, there's a sort of the nostalgia that goes with it, and sort of this sort of picture of the idealized family, when in actuality, most families have a lot more dysfunction in that. And sometimes there's a lot of dysfunction, and sometimes there are broken relationships where people haven't gone home for years just because, what might have happened in their childhood or whatever. And, they have strained relationships with their parents or their grandparents or their brothers or sisters. And so, how do we get home? I guess maybe from a family situation, but also there are those broken relationships and obstacles that make it, for example, for people coming home to church maybe because of something that could have been said or happened that hurt them. And so coming home to church is difficult. Yeah. And there's a fear there. Or other relationships, maybe people we were close to at one time, and that's got all, discombobulated. And so you're making that, or just home within yourself.
Yeah.
Being at peace within yourself. We lit the candle of peace. And so, what strikes you there as we think about those tough journeys in human relationships?
Well, I think the first place that I think we can start, or the thing that strikes me, you were talking about coming home sometimes feeling difficult, and I recognize that, there are some family dysfunctions, and, my parents got a divorce and stuff like that, but they've always been pretty cordial, especially around holidays. So it's never been an issue for me. So it's something I think I have a hard time fully grasping, those who might walk into a house and not feel like it's home and stuff like that. But I want to speak a little bit to the people who have made a decision maybe to step away from their home for a little while. And just because I have been in a relationship with people who have had this type of experience. And I want to say that sometimes breaks are good for you and your family, to step away from toxic environments and stuff like that. And it might not feel like you're coming home, but maybe home is a different routine for you this year, or maybe it's a different setup for you this year. But that doesn't mean what you're doing is wrong. Just because you don't have this Hallmark family Christmas movie thing, sometimes doing the right thing is supersedes that, and making sure you're creating safe spaces for you. And if you have kids, the kids that might be with you and stuff like that. So I do want to acknowledge that. But also in terms of like, but don't be afraid, kind of as we approach the end of the sermon, a lot of it was around this forgiveness and working through these obstacles and stuff like that. And I think eventually those times will present themselves, and it's kind of about preparing yourself for that. If you're in a hard time right now, your home might look very different than it will in 5-10 years or 2 or 3 years or whatever. But where you're at now, if you're in a process like that, is important to create your sense of home, and then let the other parts be enter into that later.
That's a lot of wisdom there. I like that. And let's kind of bookmark that, because I want to introduce another topic into this, and then we'll circle back with maybe what that looks like for us in our personal lives and our personal relationships. But these texts, the text from the Old Testament was really sort of a prophecy that was talking about this person that would come before Christ, and then God was going to answer their prayer, and the Messiah was going to come. So, essentially, the Malachi text that we had was there, but then the New Testament text was John the Baptist,
right?
And John the Baptist coming on the scene. I just read a little bit of. Actually, Luke is quoting the prophet Isaiah there, but John came with the baptism of repentance. And one thing that we worked on Sunday is repentance comes from this Greek word metanoia.
Yeah.
And metanoia literally is like a U-turn. Since we're talking about road construction, sometimes you have to go make a U-turn.
Right.
But it's like the direction that you're going in is not going to take you home. To go home takes repentance,
right.
and it's going in a completely different direction, turn around and going in the opposite way. And so there's this idea with that. And so if we are living in our relationships where there has been something that has been estranged or something that has happened that has caused this brokenness, going in and we're not at peace at that. And some people may have done some work on this and be more at peace, even if they still pretty much are estranged from their families.
Sure.
But I think for most of us, it's not. There are these lingering conversations that we know we should have, but they're just too difficult to have.
Yeah.
There are things that we have to realize and confess within ourselves about our sin, our contribution to it that we have to face. And that's hard work.
Sure.
That's sort of hard work. And so, we might also, when we talk about those kind of conversations that may need to take place, that sometimes we can have an idealized idea of what forgiveness and reconciliation may look like. And I think you were driving at that a little bit with that you may get to the point where somebody's hurt you a lot and you need to forgive them, even though they haven't asked you for forgiveness.
Yep.
But if you're going to make it, if you're going to go to a place of peace, a place of home, then it's going to be doing that hard work, and it's not done overnight. There may be a conversation that's overnight, but sometimes the pain of that, is something that takes a while to get over.
Yeah, I think that's where I was going to a certain extent, and understanding, to just build on that, is that your expectation might need to change for the relationship. Where if it was a mother or a father or something that you have a certain expectation for because of the movies or because this is how you think it should be. Because sometimes, we need to repent for our own part of it, but sometimes they need to as well.
Right.
That they have a lot that they need to repent for, that maybe help jumpstart the brokenness or whatever. So, but even if they're working on their side and you're working on your side, your expectations might need to change for what the final product looks like at the start, and realize that there's work to be done on both sides for a long way, but creating the spaces. The hard part is opening the space for healing to happen.
Right.
Because you're opening yourself up for hurt, you're opening yourself up for pain, in an effort to salvage relationship, and to salvage some space there.
I do think a starting point is sort of that self-reflection and introspection about the relationship within what we can control.
Yeah.
Another point I made looking at the Malachi text and what it was in reference to, we did the whole sermon series on Habakkuk back right at the beginning of school year,
right.
or the reset series, the rebuilding the temple, and they did rebuild the temple, and that was good. But they still, the glory days of Israel was over. Things were not as they had been, and so they continued to complain about it a lot and complain to God a lot about it. But actually, a lot of what they were complaining about, they had brought on themselves. Their worship was not what it once had been. They were doing things that clearly broke the covenant with God. And so they brought a lot of it on themselves, but yet they were looking to blame other people. Yeah. And so they're in particularly blaming God for the way things were. And we as human beings, I've heard, well, that person did this to me, but, I might have done that to this person, but this person, what they did to me was so much more. And so we reached sort of this stalemate of like, wait, you're not going to ever be able to control that other person. The only person you can control is yourself. And so if there is some forgiveness that needs to be asked, then, they may not accept it and they may not offer the forgiveness that you feel like they should, but at least you have taken that step to do the right thing. And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, it's hard work. The road home is always under construction and it's hard work. But I think to getting to a place of peace, that is something that we, must do. It's hard work.
Well, and I like that you even mentioned kind of church, and I say that because I, as much as I'd like to wish the church didn't ever cause pain or hurt to people, sometimes it has, and sometimes it does, and sometimes coming home in terms of church feels like it's hard, and I feel like I've run into a lot of scenarios recently, and not necessarily this church, but churches around that have been hurting, and I run into the people that have been hurt, and it's a very similar story. It's just this broken trust and this broken bond, and it's hard when it's the church because you have so much expectation towards it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and at one level, I say, don't get me started.
Yeah.
Because, there's been a lot of difficulties within our own denomination.
Yeah.
Some real difficulties that are leading to some divisions. And I just don't think that honors God.
Yeah.
I think at this point it's inevitable. It's probably like with the divorce that it's inevitable. But I just don't think that that's the way that Jesus wanted it.
Yeah.
I saw somebody make a post the other day, and they were saying, another consequence of the resurrection or the birth of Jesus that was not intended, an unintended consequence. I don't think Jesus coming to the world was so that we could divide.
Yeah.
He bring us together. So it's very unfortunate. And there, the good news is there's some healing and reconciliation that could come with those broken relationships, but it just makes it even more harder when it's divided.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks their side's right.
Right.
And doesn't look for any middle ground. It's hard staying in the middle.
Right.
And it's easy to run to the corners.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you kind of feel like you're everybody's enemy as well. But I think even in a normal circumstance, or not a normal circumstance, but just in a regular attender space where somebody's ministry got impacted because of a decision somebody else made, or in the spaces of what they loved and experienced, some parts had to change and stuff like that. And I think that stuff hurts in recognizing that choices and stuff like that do have impacts. But if you're feeling like church has hurt you, whether it's this church or another church or whatever, I still want to invite you home for Christmas, wherever that is that you're worshiping. We know we have viewers from across the state and maybe even across the country a little bit in some spaces. But, wherever that is, whatever that looks like, go. Because don't let the choices of humans, sinful humans, you know what I mean? Like, don't let that be your story going to an eternal loving God. Yeah. Do you know?
There was a church member that was here yesterday, this past Sunday, who had come for a baptism, and she said, "I watch you every week online. I'm just not here in person, but this week, and with the theme, said, I've been really convicted. I need to be here. I need to be in person." And we appreciate online and the technology and all, but there is something about rubbing elbows with people, that sort of, flesh on flesh, sort of incarnational relationships that happen within the church, that I do think is important, but hard. Yeah. It's easier lots of times to sort of watch, and sort of be kind of one step away from something when you're participating that way, and sometimes it's necessary and unavoidable. But I do think being together in the community of the church is really way God sort of foresaw it happen for it.
Well, I think he wanted it to feel like home. Just earlier today, you came into the office after being out for a little bit, and you went, "I'm home," and I know that was just like a small joking thing, but in some ways, like, I wish we all felt that as we walked into church or into our office places, that we'd all go, "I'm home," and really, home are the connections with the people, and hope are the relationships that we're building. One of the cool, since I've been married, one of the cool new traditions we've added to our Thanksgiving routine is on Christmas or on Thanksgiving, like the evening, we do the breakfast with Rachel's family, we do the lunch with my family, and then for desserts, we'll actually go to our friend Amy. If you don't know Amy Parsons, she's a member here, but also it's a preschool teacher and stuff. But we actually end up at their house and we do dessert together, and it feels like family. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, come on in, everybody sit down. We're watching random Christmas movies or just talking around the table or whatever. But it feels like family, and sometimes that feels like home, and a special place.
I'm just idealistic to wish that the church could be a place like that for everyone.
Yeah.
I do recognize that the church has hurt people. We've made some bad decisions. There's been some insensitivity, and people have been hurt.
Yeah.
And I think we as leaders in the church need to take responsibility. There needs to be some confession and metanoia, turning around, that we need to do, and recognizing that there's decisions and things that we said and that have hurt people, whether intended or not. Maybe most of the time unintended. Maybe there was someone who was going through some sort of grief and we were insensitive to that, or I don't know what it'd be. I mean, there could be 100 reasons.
Right.
But we need to do the hard work. We can't really control the other people, but we can work on ourselves and working on getting that right. I mentioned on Sunday that a friend of mine up in Nashville had a building company, home construction company, who built his house, and the name of the company was Kingdom Builders, which I thought was very interesting. Well, it wasn't necessarily a Christian company, but it's just like Kingdom Builders. That's what the church should be. We need to be about building the kingdom and realizing, that construction work, that hard work that goes into it, is difficult, and there's different stages to it.
That's right.
But we all need to see a part of that ourselves as that team, and so looking at the last 2 weeks, I've made challenges, and I'll do it again this week. But as we done these candles, lit the candle each week, the first week was hope, and so I said, be on the lookout to see where are you seeing hope? Because I think if we have those kind of kingdom eyes, we'll begin to. The world may look dark and dreary, but there's signs of hope if we are able to see. And the same thing with peace. And, I used the illustration from World Cup of, we were playing Iran, and, I myself, how many times did I say to you this week, this is good for America. We need to beat Iran. And I'm sort of setting up with this good versus evil and all that kind of stuff. And the players on the field, man, they were just all human beings. They were brothers in a sense. And so when, the U.S. defeated Iran, and the one player for Iran was crying, and the group of Americans surrounded him and hugged him and reassured him, because they realized how difficult that was, losing on that kind of stage.
Right.
And just the comments I read on Sunday, just about we were all humans, we're all brothers, and seeing each other that way. And I think those are signs of peace. Sometimes we can get sort of too pull ourselves back too far to sort of look at things in only, these very vivid colors. And when we get closer to it, we see that the world's really a lot more nuanced than that. and people that might vote different from us, who might believe differently than us, that may, be, in a lot of ways in their lifestyle very different from us, that we get close. Like they are on the field, we begin to see the humanity in them, and hopefully that draws out the empathy in us.
Yeah, and I think that's how we be kingdom builders, when we can show that care and that hope and that love in the nuanced things, even in the small stuff. If we can help make other people feel like they're able to have a place that feels like home, the more that we can just show the hope and joy of Christ, I think is big, and our community needs it. I was actually talking to I still help out with youth group ever so often, and I was in small group with the guys, and we were asked to ask the question, where can you show joy in your current circumstance? And the guys I was talking with, mostly middle and high school guys, they were kind of like hemming and hawing, like, oh, we could help somebody be better at video games or bring joy by, like kind of the small stuff. And I looked at them and I said, do you realize that your generation is one of the most anxious and depressed generations out there? And these are your peers. These aren't kids who are walking in somebody else's school. Like, this is at your school. This is in your space. Like, and they all just kind of went, and it just helped them kind of focus and go, you're right. Like, you put on the glasses of things that could be going wrong. It's like, there is a need for Jesus. There is a need for this hope, this peace, this joy that comes with Christ, especially as we get to that we're in this season of Advent, that there's no better time for us to remember him coming and bringing that to the world back then, but still even today we have this need for it. Right.
And to pull full circle a little bit back to what the original title was, The Fear of Home. But that's got to be pretty scary for a high school or a middle school, particularly young man, to be that vulnerable, but to have that mission. But there's a lot of fear in that, and just like it occurs to me that having the hard relationship that maybe somebody needs to have with their brother or sister or their parent, that there would be something that was a lot like fear. I think there's a lot of work and but there is fear. Yeah. And when you look at the Christmas story, all throughout it, there is this message of do not be fear, from the angels, particularly, to come to the shepherds, because there was this fear that was present in Mary and with the shepherds and the angels, but time and time again throughout that story, you see, do not be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid. Jesus, same thing throughout his ministry. How many times do you say, don't be afraid, don't be afraid? After the resurrection, don't be afraid, it's me, okay? Don't be afraid. And so that's a good message, and I think really sort of fundamentally looking at what happens at Christmas with God becoming a human being is this message of Emmanuel, God with us. Yes, yeah. And so through all of this, this hard work that we have to do, this sort of personal reflection that we have to do, and maybe some hard conversations that we have to do to get home, is to realize that God is with us. Yeah. It may be scary, it may be tough, but God's with us.
Right. Yeah. And no matter when those hard times present itself, like it's nice to know that he's there, nice to know that he's with us. Right. Well, it is about time. And I do want to remind everybody that for our last podcast of the year, we are doing a Christmas special, and we need your help. Dave, will you tell them how they can help us?
Right. Yeah. We're coming up. Sunday week, which is the 18th, there's only going to be one service on that Sunday, and it is going to be, mostly music. It's a music program. There's not going to be any sermon. So doing a deep dive on a sermon is not going to be possible that next week. But Nick and I were talking that, we've been very blessed this year in being able to do this podcast and talk, and we've hopefully grown through it. to sort of look back and have a kind of a Christmas special if we could. But we wanted to include as part of it is like as we've had this theme of home for Christmas of really what makes Christmas home for you. What are the traditions that you enjoy? What are the decorations you enjoy? Maybe what are some of your favorite memories of Christmas past? What are your hopes for Christmas? So just trying to hear your words as well as ours. I mean, we can come up with lots of words, but we like to be a little bit more interactive with that one. And so hopefully, if you could send us either email, or text us if you've got our numbers, or if you see us at church or at an event, like a cool event that's coming up this Saturday that you should talk about a little bit. Let us know so we can use some of that stuff in that final podcast of the year.
Yeah, and the event he was talking about is the Christmas Palooza. If you're seeing this, there's still time. It's on Saturday, December 10th from 5 to 7. We are throwing this event for our Angel Tree families to give them just an extra dose of Christmas and joy for the season. But it's not just for them. It's for the families in our community. It's for our own body to come and feel the spirit of Christmas. We'll have our choir out here singing carols. So we need you and your voices to come. We also need people who are willing to kind of sit and get to know our community, just to be that peaceful presence, that joyful presence in a season where who knows what's going on in all these people's worlds.
Sure.
But, so old, young, man, women, we want you here to just celebrate with us as a body, but also to be a hopeful light to our community. So come on out. It'll be a good time. They'll be packing. There's a free pancake dinner that will be here. We'll have bounce houses out here. A lot of Santa's going to be here.
Santa,
I
know him.
Yeah. So it'll be a real good time. We're excited about that. And if you have any questions, just again shoot us emails. Any comments on the video today, or any comments or stories you want to submit for the Christmas special, you can do that at the deepdive@hickoryflat.org email. You can also send it to our personal emails if you want to. We'd love to hear from you. Hear any questions or concerns. You can also drop them in the comments section below. And without any further ado, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, just have a great week and continue on through Advent and Christmas. So
absolutely.
Go.
All right, guys. Well, it was fun being here. Y'all take care.
And God bless now.